definitely startup mentality, good stories about when he had a startup. So I hope there's not a feeling out there that, hey, where's all the startups? We have one today, though. And thank you for Kimberly for coming to talk. Let's give her a round of applause. And I'm going to do just a couple more housekeeping notes, and then we'll turn it over to you to tell your story. This event is made possible by a number of people. Lots of folks like the people who are working here. Igniter TV, Sean Dominski, doing the live streaming. The Chester County Economic Development Council is financially supporting us to do this, to raise the profile of innovation in Chester County. There's so much of it. We try to do this 3 times a week. But we're not yet. And Fox.com is also a sponsor. I want to give them kudos too for helping us kind of develop a model here.
Really?
And Ben's going through camp. And yes, and that's that. We do other events, some ad hoc like Indie Film Night. Jesse?
Indie Film Night is October 9th. We're showing actually one of my latest short film, but it's Thursday, October 9th to come out. There's a meet and greet from 7 to 8. We screen the film at 8. We have a Q&A afterwards. It should be a spirited Q&A this time. It was spirited last time. I think even more so spirited. We also have a beer and a pizza sponsor, so come out if for no other reason than to hang out and enjoy some local pizza and beer. So yeah, Thursday, October 9th.
Yeah, we trialed one a couple weeks ago at our night owls, which is on Wednesday night from 7 to 10. It was well attended. Lots of new folks.
What are you showing?
Next time we're showing Stud.
Yeah, Stud is we have a variety. The focus of Indie Film Night is original pieces from local filmmakers, kind of in an intimate meet and greet sort of setting. So this time it's an original narrative short that I wrote and directed.
In the first one, we had. You want to talk about the first 2 guys?
Yeah, the first 2 guys were, they both actually work at Westchester University in the Digital Media Center, but they do a series called Crafted Local, which highlights local artists and retailers. Really beautifully shot, sort of intimate portraits of local, one was a coffee shop and the other one was a bakery. And then they talked about them.
Yeah, that was cool.
Did you post it online too?
Not everything. There's we did start to, I put an event up there for Stud that we're gonna have, like, once we get them rolling, we'll have an event on the main page. But it'll be a mix of documentary and all sorts of different things, but the emphasis will be local filmmaking and filmmakers.
So just a reminder, we're live streaming, and the whole thing, all of them are available on Walnut Street Labs TV, our YouTube channel. And then Mike does a 1 or 2 minute vignette that he'll do a little questionnaire at the end, and so feel free to watch those again or share them. We also do co-working here. We're probably growing either that way or both soon. So we have about 15 people working here, and if you're interested in rubbing elbows with us, feel free to let me or Kevin or Ben know. And we also run an incubator, and we've got 2 companies in there, and you can ask me about that too. Trying to keep things brief here. And last thing we should pitch, next week start a meetup is Jason Sherman, a local guy who runs Instamore. After that, Bob Mould, who runs Artisan Mobile. After that, the CTO of a company that's been in the press a lot, Movin', financial startup. CTO Bob Savino is speaking. So there's another thing that we just launched called Office Hours, Walnut Street Labs Office Hours, in collaboration with CCEDC and the I2N. Kevin's going to mention it because it segues nicely into Kim, how we met Kim. So let Kevin take over.
So I've kind of been the guinea pig for our Office Hours program, and gotten to meet a lot of really great people from it. And one of those people was Kimberly. Kimberly, Office Hours is basically you can schedule 15 minutes with an expert or established industry veteran. And so Kimberly found me through our site, and we met. And before she was out the door, I ran over to Ben and I said, "You got to get her booked for a started Meetup, she has a really amazing story, and I think that a lot of people will be able to relate to it on multiple levels. So it's great to have her here, and check out Office Hours. It's now live on our OneStreetLabs.com. So right on the menu. So with that.
Thank you.
I'll take a little drink of water first. Thanks for having me here. I'm like super, I like imagined that it would be like 3 of you guys and I would just be like telling you my like casual conversation. So, well, I wanted to start by, telling you a little bit about the story of how I was diagnosed, because I think that that's a really important part of understanding like what treatment box is and what it can do for people. But when I sat down last night, I was thinking, okay, like where should I start with this story? I realized I could never tell you guys the story of how I was diagnosed because it reads like a novel. We would be here like all day. And I think that, we have this like assumption that, when somebody's diagnosed with cancer, this dramatic, like made for TV moment when like a person comes in and they say, you have cancer. But in real life, what happens is it's usually somebody's diagnosed over a series of months and sometimes even years. And that was definitely the case with me. And one interesting thing about, especially with young adults who have cancer, they are most often diagnosed at a later stage. And that's because, of course, nobody thinks we're so young, we're so healthy, you can't have cancer, right? So even as like cancer rates across all categories, the death rates have kind of declined, the one category that hasn't is young adults, and it's stayed about the same. So just an interesting thing. And I think when you talk to a lot of young adults who have cancer, you'll often hear a story about a misdiagnosis, and that was definitely the case with me. So I just kind of wanted to like give you some highlights of the story. At the time, I was a small business owner, and I was living life with absolutely no margin, which I'm sure like pretty much all of you guys in the room can relate to that. And I had started feeling just kind of like odd pains, like super tired, just not sure exactly, like maybe I just needed a break. And from there was really a misdiagnosis. There was an important missed phone call from my doctor, and there was a sampling error on a biopsy. And if you don't know what that is, it means like if you have a biopsy, they actually take the sample from a part of the organ or whatever it is that doesn't have cancer. So it can look okay when things actually aren't. And so there were lots of trips to like emergency rooms with young residents who told me like, oh, like we don't know why you're feeling bad. So I had been, my health was like continuing to decline, and to be quite honest with you, I became pretty obsessed with it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like one of those people, like the first thing that I want to do when I feel like something's wrong is go to like WebMD. So I was like constantly like on WebMD, so much to the point that my husband was like, you're like obsessed, like something's wrong with you, like psychologically, like you need to stop like Googling this. But I really was, I knew, I felt like something was really wrong with my body, and I couldn't get a diagnosis. So it's kind of one of the important things that I learned through this whole experience is that you are your own advocate for your health, and like nobody knows your body more than you do, and you shouldn't, if you feel like something's wrong, you should keep pursuing it until you figure out what it is. I think that overall I had this view of the healthcare system as taking care of you, and that's definitely not what I felt like I learned through the experience. So finally it kind of became like evident that something was actually really wrong with me, and I was having like really severe pains in my legs. My blood pressure was like sky high. I couldn't walk without a few steps without getting winded. And finally my parents were like, okay, this has gone like far enough, and we need to figure out what's going on. So I was a little bit hesitant because of all the trips to the emergency rooms before, but I decided, okay, things have progressed to worse, and I do need to go. And that night I was admitted to the hospital finally, and I had about half the amount of blood that I needed in my body. So that's why I was so winded, because I was super anemic, and I had a blood transfusion that night. And then in the following days, I had tests and, different procedures. And finally, a doctor came in with kind of a trail of residents in tow. And I remember the exact thing that she said. She said, it's worse than we had hoped. It's cancer. So just kind of flatly like that. And then she said, I want to know if you understand what this means for your fertility. But the only thing that I could think about was how ironic it was, because it was Mother's Day. And so that's how I learned that I had cancer. Now, you would hope that this would be like the worst part of the story, but I have to admit it wasn't the worst part of the story. A few days later, still in the hospital, I had a doctor and a team of nurses rush into my room in the middle of the night and say that, you need to come, you're going to be put in the ICU. And so at this point, I'm so sick. I really have no clue what's going on. And finally, I realized a doctor comes in to insert a central line. I don't know if anybody ever had a central line. It's the worst. So they put this thing over your face, and you can't see exactly what's going on. And so I realized, and he told me at that point, he was like, you have 2 blood clots. So remember the pain in my leg? Yeah, those are 2 blood clots. So it was things went from worse to worse. And I'm the type of person, I like to know what's going on. I want the worst case scenario. So of course, naturally, I asked the doctor, is everything, am I going to die? Is everything going to be okay? And really what I meant was, can you assure me that everything is okay, because this seems a little scary? And I expected him to say, yes, everything's fine. But what he said was, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that we're doing everything that we can to help you. And I just remember being damn, that's it's not what you want to hear. So that night was the first, that night and the next day was the first time that I feel I ever understood what it felt like to be truly helpless. I think the first time it came to me was when a nurse came in the next morning, and she pulled off my covers, and she pulled off my hospital gown, and there I was completely exposed, shivering, and she was giving me a bath with a sponge. And I just remember thinking everything I thought I knew seemed like complete bullshit, nothing. I couldn't believe how much everything was messed up. It turned my world upside down. So after surgery, I learned that I have, with uterine cancer, there's 2 kind of big subtypes. There's one that 90% of people have, and it's a highly curable kind. And then there's one that 10% of people have that's an aggressive form, and a lot of times there's just maintenance therapy. Well, of course, when you know it, I have this rare aggressive one that only 10% of people have, which is usually seen in African American women who are in their 70s. So I can kind of understand why the doctors were so late to diagnose me. So after that year, it was a year of chemo, of radiation, and I can't explain to you if you never, I don't know if there are other survivors in the room, but I can't explain to you the isolation that cancer brings with it, which is really ironic, because you're constantly surrounded by people. You constantly have you can't even hardly pee by yourself. You have your doctors, you have your nurses, you have your caregivers, you have your friends, your family. You're never alone. But yet you feel completely isolated. And I think that that's really because the problem really is that we're under the illusion that we're in control, right? Now we all know intellectually that we're really not in control, but we can't really feel what that means until you're in that position. And so everything that I thought that I knew didn't matter anymore, and I was desperately trying to make sense of the world, my new, what they call the new normal, my new world around me. Now, one of the things that happens when you get cancer is that people come out of the woodwork. People you haven't seen since kindergarten start calling you, and it's awesome at first because you really do need that support right when you're diagnosed. But people were like super awkward. Like past that first like initial card or phone call, like people don't know what to say. People don't know what to do. They feel like weird. They feel awkward. Are they going to say the wrong thing? So what happens is they say nothing at all usually, and that silence is really deafening. Makes a lonely experience even more isolating. And what happens is when you're in the middle of your battle and you can't like pick your head up off the pillow, you are surrounded by not many people at all. So, you know, an interesting thing about cancer too, and this is something that a lot of people don't know unless you've been through the experience yourself, is that, well, if you're one of the lucky people that can survive, that one of the hardest parts of cancer is actually when cancer. So when you're just get out of remission and the doctors say, okay, see you later. A friend of mine, I actually remember somebody telling me this when I was first diagnosed, and I was like, are you crazy? Like, why would that be like the hardest part? Like, no way. But it was definitely true, true for me too. And I actually had a friend who gave like the perfect analogy that I've ever heard. She said, when you find out you have cancer, it's like when you find out your house is on fire and all you can think about is just like getting out alive, getting you and your family out alive. But when you're declared in remission is like when you're sitting on the curb and you're looking at your burnt down house. And that is really, it's very true. So I guess there I was kind of looking at my burnt down house, and you know, I had this business. I was trying to get back to it, working full time. Right before I was diagnosed, we had just hired our first employees. It was like things were going good. But what I felt like was that my values weren't in alignment anymore with what I was doing, and it made me miserable. And I think that, you know, any of us who are business owners or, you know, in the startup community, we treat these things like they're a part of ourselves. They're like our babies, right? So it's hard to let go when things either aren't working or when you're not like there anymore. So I really probably spent about a year in therapy, like trying to figure out, okay, how move forward, because I felt like I had people counting on me for their paychecks and their mortgages, and how can I just leave? And finally I realized that it's okay, because dreams die, and when a dream dies, it's okay to move on. So with a lot of heartache, I decided that I needed to move on. And it was really empowering to move on, because it made me, I think part of being empowered is having those core values and align with like what you're doing every day. You know, I felt at that point like super lost. I was kind of like in a drift. But I had been, you know, in this industry for, you know, almost like 13 years. I feel like I put all this time in. I had all these awesome contacts, and I decided that what I could do for this community, this cancer community, is use like what I had been doing. And sure, like I wasn't like curing cancer, and I wasn't running like an amazing nonprofit, but it's what I felt like I could do. So there were two problems that I kept coming back to in my mind. One was, how do you bridge that gap between somebody who doesn't know how to support somebody and your friend feeling like super isolated even when they're surrounded by people? And number two was an experience I had when I was first diagnosed, which is that I wanted to, I think symbolism is something that, I don't know if I've thought a lot about this, and I think that especially when you're going through a hard time or you're going through cancer or some life-threatening illness, like symbolism and things means a lot to people. So when I was first diagnosed, I thought, you know, I really need to keep my head in a good space. Like I need to like not get down like mentally. Like I need to like keep it good, keep it positive. So I went online. I thought, okay, I'm going to order some like art prints to like put in my house. And like I'm a big fan of like letterpress. So I was like, surely there's some like letterpress, like beautiful art prints out there. So I checked the internet. No. Checked Etsy, scoured Etsy for hours and hours and hours, and nothing. It's like odd. Okay, like surely I'm not using the right keywords in Etsy, because there could not possibly be, you know, zero on Etsy. So I kind of was like, okay, I ordered something. It wasn't quite, you know, what I wanted, but it was okay. Then a few months later, had the same thing. I thought, you know, I'd really like a piece of jewelry that nobody knows except for me what it is, and it's just a reminder that like I'm strong enough to like get through this. Same thing, went online, nothing, went on Etsy, nothing. Like, what is going on? I like couldn't understand it. Like, it wasn't like I wanted something that was something that I would wear, like not something hot pink, not something with ribbons all over it, not something that said fight like a girl. Like, I wanted something that was for kind of an upper, like, you know, a middle class like woman who's not gonna wear like you know like a $2 bracelet like made in China. So I really couldn't find anything out there. Then I had a friend who's in the fashion industry. She's actually an amazing illustrator for a bunch of different fashion designers, and she illustrated the front of a box, a subscription box. And at this point, I had no clue what a subscription box was. I barely heard about it. Maybe it had popped up in my Facebook feed before, an advertisement for one. But when I saw it, like, my first thoughts were, I would have loved this when I was going through cancer. Like, this is genius. And I think that, you know, I remember reading an article a while back about patents, and how the most patents, you know, talking about the way, how they're like conceived of is like by combining, you know, two different things that are unrelated but that are, you know, relevant to each other in a way that nobody has before. And I feel like that's kind of, you know, that's just as simple as that. That's what Treatment Box was. It's so it is it's a subscription box. It works like any other subscription box, which is that if you're not familiar with them, it's kind of an old version of Wine of the Month Club, right? It's like you buy into something that every month gets sent to your house. So this whole like industry of subscription boxes for everything. If you guys are men, like maybe you've heard of like Dollar Shave Club. They like send you a razor in the mail every month, or a Bark Box. That's a box that like people buy, and every month it comes and it has like stuff for your dogs in it. So we work just like that. We sell boxes that are filled with inspirational items, half inspirational items and half comfort items. And we sell those in increments of 1, 3, 6, or 12 months. And it's geared towards a caregiver or friend. So a person would buy into the box for their friend who's going through cancer. So it's not actually directed towards a patient themselves. And so we really, I guess, you know, I looked at like 3 kind of core problems that I saw when I was going through my experience. You know, not knowing how to reach out to somebody past that initial call, the lack of like quality products that were on the market, and the challenge of, if you are a friend or a caregiver, to find a gift that is appropriate, because people really struggle with that. They don't know what to get people, and I find, even if you think about the most popular thing people get cancer patients, probably is flowers, right? But the interesting part is that most cancer patients can't have flowers. It's not good for their immune system. So lots of doctors will tell you right when you're diagnosed, like, you can't have any flowers in your hospital room or in your house, especially if you're, you know, having like low white blood cell counts and all that kind of stuff. So we were really looking at ways to like solve those problems. And so through, what I love about the subscription method is that it's continual support, like month after month. Like, you don't have to do a lot. Like, you just have to go online and you order the box, and then month after month we send a gift to your friend. And every month, actually, it's not up on the website yet, but we're about to launch it. Every month you get to go in, we prompt you with a message that says, hey, leave a new message for your friend Kimberly. You go back into the system, you write your new message, you say, Kimberly, hey, I heard your scans weren't doing good this month, but I just want you to know I'm still thinking, and that message goes in your next box. The other thing is just, you know, what we hope to do and what we're building right now is having a community of people who are survivors, who are maybe past treatment box recipients, that can help choose the items. So what will happen is we will go in and like curate, you know, 20 items, and from there our community will narrow it down to 4 to 5 items. Now, as a business, you know, person, I'll tell you why when I thought how crazy it was that there wasn't anything on Etsy or online, because there are 14.5 million survivors in the U.S., and every year over 8 million more are diagnosed which is a pretty large population to be completely unserved. Now, when I say unserved, there are lots of things out there, but there's never anybody who's stepped up to take a leadership role in that industry. There's a lot of mom and pop stores, a lot of like women sending gift baskets from their home. That's what there's a lot of mostly items that are super like practical, like radiation burn cream or like things that you would get like CVS, and that's not what we're doing. We have four different revenue models. We sell the box, the subscription box. We sell one-off products. And then we wholesale those one-off products. And the one-off products are things that have been specifically manufactured by us. So that's where we are right now. We actually have a bunch of items right now that are being manufactured and are about to come into the store. And then the last thing is that we are co-branding with nonprofits and with other brands. And I have to tell you, one of the most exciting things that's happened so far was a call completely out of the blue. One day I get a call on my cell phone from the CEO of Livestrong, which, by the way, is my favorite cancer organization. Even after all the crazy things that they've been through, like I think that they've done amazing work in the field. And if you survivorship wasn't even like a word that we used before Livestrong existed. So to get a call was huge. And it was the CEO, Doug. He said, heard about what you're doing. I'm super excited about it. And let me tell you why I'm excited about it. He said, you have developed something that is the perfect delivery system for us. And we want to do a partnership. I'd never thought about that before. I never thought about, actually nonprofits have to get people to come, these powerhouses, clearinghouses of information, but they actually have to get somebody to come to them to get that information. So right now we're in the works with a distribution deal with Livestrong, and what we'll be doing is pairing up their information with gifts that are relevant and that are similar in their brand aesthetic, and we'll be selling those for, like, the first one we're going to do is a newly diagnosed box. So it's somebody, right when somebody would get diagnosed, like what's the information that they would need and what are like products that could help them through that person. The other part is that, like I said, we're bringing these amazing products on board. And the reason I'm really excited about the products is because I really feel like it serves a community that's been forgotten. I feel like there has never been anybody that has really put a lot of thought into like design and what people actually need. So we're working, there's a lot of people, I feel like this is getting a lot of attention right now in the cancer community, and so we're starting to work with a lot of other cool companies that are doing things like, for example, like fleeces that have zips for your port. I mean, hello, like why haven't we thought about this before? Like you have to go in there and like basically strip down to like tank top to get, your chemos, and it's cold and it's freezing, it's uncomfortable. So there are a lot of cool things that are happening in the cancer community around products, and so that's kind of where we are right now. So trying to think of other awesome things to tell you guys about. So yeah, we're just excited to move forward. I mean, there's been like lots of bumps in the road like there is with any startup, but I feel like we're at a good place, and I feel like what we're doing is important. I initially thought about it as a nonprofit, and I just kind of like imagined myself like sitting at my kitchen table, like putting together some boxes. But then I realized like this would never work as a nonprofit. It just never would work. And so right now I'm still trying to navigating. At first I was like, we want to, I want to do like a Tom Shoes model. I want to like give a box for every box that's sold. We give a box. And right now we're still trying to like navigate through like what that actually is and like what is most helpful to the community. So anybody's thoughts on that, it'd be awesome. I'd love to hear about something like that. So.
Well, listen, we're about to get into Q&A, so just introduce yourself and I'll hear it. So,
good. I'm Mike Gutman. I'm a partner at the Labs. And a couple of ideas popped up right away, which maybe you've already thought of. First would be, are you planning to do any kind of co-branding or white labeling? For example, for hospitals or
Yes.
something like that, where
Yeah.
they want to send us, and they essentially, they're marketing skills.
Have thought about that. And what I'd really like to do, and I think it's a really great idea because hospitals are competing so much with each other now. I mean, like when you go to interview like an oncologist, it's almost like a car salesman now. Like people are really trying to like get your business. And I know that a lot of hospitals already send kind of like a gift item when you decide they're going to be treated there. And so if anybody knows the CEO of Treatment Centers for America, please let me know because I have a really great idea for them. But yes, we do. We want to do that with different hospitals. And I think most of like our wholesaling will probably go into like a hospital type gift shop. And we've done a lot of research around that to see like what is it that people don't have? What is it that people need? What's the price range that, these people who are going into the gift shops can afford to buy? So I think there's a lot of work to be done in that area, which, to be honest with you, I'm not quite there yet. But
And also, I would think that large drug chains would have the prescriptions for the types of drugs that are associated with those diseases.
yeah, it's tricky. I feel like I had somebody suggest that to me, which I think is brilliant. But I'm trying to figure out too, like the cancer community is very fickle in that they don't want to feel like they're being exploited. So how do you deliver? How can you like deliver products and get these boxes out there, but without making somebody feel like, oh, like this is sponsored by X, So I am really interested in that. I've had several suggestions for people, like maybe like a drug company doesn't necessarily like sponsor a box, but maybe they like get paid to get like certain items into a box. I don't know. And like maybe they're not even items that are really related to their company, but more like this item sponsored by.
Well, I think it could be more like a public relations thing. So the soft pedal,
Yeah.
but then they can claim that they're doing this. So, I don't know if you would consider that exploitation of patients, but from their point of view, they're just getting this box or whatever. The other thing I was thinking of is that for every patient, in most cases, there are relatives. And those relatives could use boxes with information and possibly products as well.
I agree. I feel like the caregivers are the people who pull this whole thing together, pull the whole treatment together, and are most often the people that are not thought about or asked how they're doing. And they are usually the people who are fielding the phone call saying, how's so-and-so doing? And I really experienced that with my husband, seeing that process of him going through that. And a caregiver box is for sure on our list of things to do. And I hope that we can get there sooner than later because I think it's really important. And if you look online, there's one organization, it's tiny, is dedicated to caregivers. There's no national big nonprofit dedicated to caregivers, and it's pretty startling when you look at it. So yeah, thank you.
Also, I would think that as a caregiver, like say you have a diagnosis of uterine cancer, I don't know what you need. So it would be great to get a box that had things that you need that I can then bring to you.
Oh, that's cool.
As opposed to you're getting the box.
Oh, I got it.
Sitting there, and then I have to, so and also then I can get information about how to use these products.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. That's
So then you're
really
facilitating
interesting.
the interaction.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Lynn and then Rick.
Hi, Lynn Walken. I don't know if this would be an idea, but in addition to product boxes, it would be lovely to have service boxes in a sense. I remember when I was going through various treatments, if I had gotten a coupon to have a massage or a meditation tape or something rather than a product, I never used the particular kinds of products, but it really would have been a great help to be hooked into a network of masseuses or even alternative medicine people, not necessarily that would conflict with treatment, but something that would be so uplifting.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm not quite sure. I need to think more about how to.
Some kind of a color scheme, coloring colors, and just something like that would have been a different kind of bodily treatment. Instead
Yes.
of basic, something that would have been calming and would have been reassuring and reaffirming.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, one of the things that I realized with the Livestrong is that they actually there are a lot of different organizations that do things for survivors for free that I had no clue about when I was going through treatment. And that's one of the things that I hope that even just within the Livestrong that I can kind of, you know, for example, like I never knew you could get free membership at the YMCA if you had cancer. Never knew that. There's like a whole program to like get you your strength back. So like being able to kind of get that information out to people too, I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and a last comment, sometimes doctors can be so myopic. They might treat a particular thing, they might focus, they're specialists. They forget about the whole person or the whole body.
Yes.
And that really needs a lot of attention. It is a whole care system that you're trying to address. Not just
Totally.
an area of the organ of disease, but the entire, the rest of the body needs care and reassurance.
I agree.
Right?
Hi, Ray Sarnacki, I'm an advisor here at the lab. One of the thoughts that occurred to me as I was listening to your presentation kind of piggybacks off of what Mike was saying. Another distribution channel might be through Caring Bridge. I know I've had a couple of friends that have gone through cancer and have posted how they're doing on Caring Bridge. And you might, as you read their description of what they're going through, it might be a natural thing for someone like myself, for example, to say, hey,
Right.
look at this and, get some ideas of what they might be able to do based on how that person is feeling or the discomfort that they're going through.
Yes, I agree. There's actually about to be a new website launch that's just like Caring Bridge. Caring Bridge is a nonprofit, which is interesting because it's sometimes hard to, I feel like I often walk like a fine line between the fact that I am doing something that helps people, but I'm not a non-for-profit. And part of that is just that I have a lot of interest in like social enterprises, and I really want to be able to figure out what it is I can do with, so I've kind of had a tough time figuring out like how do you kind of walk that line with nonprofits feeling like you're not like pink washing it. So I've had a lot of trouble with that. So if anybody, I don't know, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts about it too. And I probably am more sensitive to it since I'm a survivor myself than most people would be. But I find that difficult when people perceive you as a nonprofit, but you're not.
Well, I just like to say, you mentioned a board or a group of survivors who are helping you curate the 20. If they're permanent and useful in different segments, that's like your board.
Yeah.
And anything that gets through them seems to be
That's a good point.
kosher.
Yeah, to use them in ways besides just.
Yeah.
Like that.
I just want to point out that we had a talk here recently for B Corporation. So I don't know how familiar you are with that,
Yeah.
but that might be a way of bridging your gap. Exactly.
I do know about a B Corps, and I really do want to do the process, but I'm not familiar enough with it. So if anybody knows a lot lot about that process,
Yeah, we can tell you.
I would love.
And what's great is
I would
they're
love that.
doing for pending. So for a long time, it was like a really high hurdle.
Right,
And
to get-
until you work, it took ANSCO years to get the accreditation. But now they're offering, if you're in the process, if you're making progress, they'll let you advertise B Corp.
That's
pending.
awesome.
But what you do is you actually change your incorporation so that certain social goals are part of that. And that actually helps you in a variety of ways, and it'll also connect you into the whole B Corp community. So
That'd be amazing. I'm
yeah,
gonna talk to all. Okay.
That's the bridge exactly, I think, that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think the companies that are off the top of my head, Patagonia, the 7th generation, Badger, Palm, is a tagging one. Do you remember other B Corps? There's like over 1,000 in the world, but it's locally started.
Oh, really?
One guy, the founder, and one, he's from Westchester. And
Oh, wow,
B
that's so
Corp
cool.
is based in Wayne.
Oh, I had no clue. There's a local connection,
be
so that's
happy
really cool.
to-
Okay.
Kyle, it's 23. I'll piggyback on what Michael said about the caregiving. And you had mentioned that you wanted to like give a box, get a box. What if when you send someone a box, you get one as well? And you could even put things in there like a book, so, conversation starters, how you said that it's the hardest thing to figure out what to talk about. If you put little unrelated things in both boxes and you both receive it, then you have some starting off point to talk about that isn't about cancer. Like you put in a book in both of them or something in both of them, and it's part of you both get, so that they get, for their dealing with cancer, and you get, like Michael said, some sort of
Thing to
something,
help.
but then other unrelated things that would, be conversation starters to kind of
Yeah.
encourage that kind of conversation.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you.
Marion, Beth?
I'm Mary County Economic Development Council. Kind of piggybacking on the caregiver, there's not a lot out there for kids whose parents are going through treatment as well, especially young kids. I found that most of the information was geared at a much higher level. They don't understand. I mean, my kids, they thought it was hilarious that I was going to lose my hair, but anything, related to that, I think would also be great. And the other comment I just wanted to put back on Liz, there is a local organization that donates alternative treatments for different kind of cancers. Unite for Her, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they exactly what you just said, they provide vouchers and coupons to people that are going through treatments for massages or I don't remember, acupuncture, there's a long list on it. Thanks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just a thought looking at the website. Have you thought about doing a Spanish language version? There's a big
haven't.
Hispanic community, very relational. So that might be one thing. So that's a
Okay.
positive thing. Mild concern would be any concerns about HIPAA or medical privacy because you're identifying quite a lot about a patient, maybe.
Yeah.
So
We've been trying to be really conscious about even our boxes and stuff to be the box that comes in is there's nothing that says what it is in the box.
but just the concern that maybe even the address of where the box is going to, the patient name, there's identifiable information that hasn't come up.
You mean because it's kept in a system of
Yeah.
ours?
Just a thought. Kind of thing which is easier to
Usually
fix.
that's not, that's usually not a big problem if they volunteer.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because it's been volunteered, so I don't know, but that is good. I should probably,
Volunteer by patient, so
Yes,
okay.
Well,
yes,
the patient would have to start it then.
yes.
Exactly.
Kevin,
Just a thought.
is there a local
Yeah.
back-end as a service that is HIPAA compliant out of the box? CloudMine?
Yeah, Cloud9.
I don't know what your back-end
They
is.
started locally, now they're here in San Francisco.
But it comes out of the box as HIPAA compliant. And I don't know.
Okay.
Tech stack is, but-
yeah, I'll have to look at that. Interesting.
I'd like to bring it back to the model for a second, not looking at it from a cancer perspective. I had one client that I really tried to push into the subscription box. I love the model. I've seen lots of examples. I haven't seen a raging success story. Like your whole revenue model or multiple revenue models is great. Did you see one that convinced you to do it, or?
I think I thought a lot about Birchbox. I thought a lot about Birchbox because they have been so successful in their model. And, what I like about them is that they really have changed the face of how women shop for cosmetics. And I think that's really interesting that it's not just, it's like a discovery kind of platform is what they call it.
So can you define Birchbox a little bit?
So Birchbox is kind of they're kind of like the mega box. Like if you talk about the subscription box industry, there's one that stands out above everybody, and that's Birchbox. They have 1 jillion subscribers, 2 Harvard grads that decided that people could shop for cosmetics in a different way. So what they do is they're a sample size box that you subscribe to, and every month in the mail you get different samples of different products. So it's like a way to discover products that you like. So I looked at a lot about what they were doing, how they, one of their models is it's not just about the subscription, it's about the product they sell on the site. The subscription is just kind of like a hook. So I thought a lot about that too.
I know there's an author, blogger, writer, Tim Ferriss, who quarterly sends out his favorite pen, a piece of paper, a book, like his curated things. So you see subscription boxes even there. And then there was a platform that was created to allow anybody to go and create a subscription box for themselves. So you don't often hear about the subscription box industry, but it's a really compelling thing because the UPS, I live in the borough, and the UPS truck comes down and stops in every house, right? So there's a big shift to going out and having stuff come to you. So
Yeah.
do you feel like that platform of the industry is still ripe for innovation? And
I think it is. Now, I've had a lot of people, different business mentors try to be like, oh, I don't know, like, look at the research, it's slowing down. But if you really think about it, we've always had a subscription box. Like, we've always had different ways that, there's been Wine of the Month Club forever. There's been Fruit of the Month Club forever. So I think that what's happening, though, is it's shifted to something that is cool and, like, fresh, and that gets the attention of a lot of younger people. And even things now, like, even on my block, I see, the blue plate boxes all the time, and that's just like people literally ordering their groceries the meals are already put together. So I think that personally, I feel like it's like a whole new way to shop, and it takes a lot of like the convenience out of trying to discover new things, or trying to. So I think personally, I think that it is, but I do think that I have to be really cognizant of the fact that this has been such a trend in the industry, and that I need to make sure that I have other like revenue streams to like continue to support that. So.
how big are you now? Employees, I should ask.
Well, you should not ask that, because there is one real employee, and that's me. But what we do, so I have a lot of different people that I work with, and I do co-packing. So everything goes through, I really built it from the beginning to scale. So I put it at a fulfillment center like immediately. So all of the distribution is done through them.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. Yeah.
That's awesome. That technology has really come online in the last 2 or 3 years to outsource that completely. And then you can do supply chain and outsource that and have amazing experiences.
Yeah, I feel like I wanted to, I want to be super lean, but I also want to just provide really good customer service, and I don't feel like I can provide really good customer service when I'm like packing boxes, So
I did see a new subscription box for new moms or families with newborns. So that stuff is coming. Oh, that reminds me, can you crowd buy?
So right now you can't, but somebody just told me about the technology, and I'm gonna institute it, because I can already see it happening on the site, where I'll get like, oh, there's 12 of us coworkers and we want to do a year subscription. So how do we do that? So it's already going to happening, and I just need to institute that technology to make it happen easier. So
That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Jessica Pearsall. I'm Special Events Coordinator here at the bank, amongst other things. But I think that one of the things that seems unique about what you do with your subscription service is that you're solving an awkward moment problem. I tend to be a person who's tuned into I'm a little awkward myself, and I don't, when somebody gets sick or like somebody's sad in my office, I don't know what to do, and I send them somewhere else because I'm not the right person. So I think I'm like, Wine of the Month Club doesn't necessarily solve an awkward moment problem, but yours really does. And that how do you?
yeah, and
when somebody gets sick, they're in a way kind of a different person to you.
Yeah.
And how do you relate to them? And I think that sort of solves that.
Yeah, and also when you think about too, like, what if you're like all the way on the other side of the country, and it's like it just gets even more awkward, I feel like, to support people. So.
But I was also thinking, I guess it sounds like you're dealing specifically with people going through cancer diagnosis and treatment, but I know my dad had Alzheimer's, and that would have been an unbelievable product for not just even him. It's like you get to the point where you can't button your own shirt, so it would be great to have a Velcro shirt arrive, or something, something that ability and things like that.
So I felt I felt really strongly about starting with a niche, because I really felt like that's what the story was, and I felt like that's what was gonna, that's how I was gonna get PR, is through this story. And but I have to, I definitely, that is I'm in the process of talking to investors right now, and that's like part of the plan, is to to figure this out within the cancer community, and I have people all the time like emailing me about other chronic diseases and like, is it just for cancer? Yeah, well right now it is, but that's definitely like the way we're headed. So
Yeah, let's have one more question. Lars?
Yeah, I'm Lars Vincent, Records Pharmaceuticals, which is just local here. So, you talked about bumps in the road, you know, and obviously you've managed to sort out a lot of those, but what about initial funding, getting website up, trademarking, all those sorts of things that people have as problems, and they're on a fast learning curve.
well, could you like a whole nother talk about just this topic? Because I've actually had quite a rough experience. I got involved with somebody who was not such a good person in the very beginning. So I launched this with an investor, and it's a long story. I won't go into all of the awful details. But what I can tell you is that I had to bootstrap that money back to the investor. And I want to tell the story because I think it's a really important story to tell, because I think that like as small business owners or entrepreneurs, we often like to tell the story that everything is going okay. Like we're doing so awesome, like oh my gosh, you don't believe how many new subscribers we got this month. But really, like shit hits the fan like all the time behind the scenes. And I feel like this is like one of the hardest things that you can do is to be like an entrepreneur. So to have that like support from the community is really important. So I do like to tell this story in that I got involved with somebody not such a good person, didn't have the same vision as me, didn't want to commit like the time to it, was tied to an investor, not the same person, but tied to the investor. So to successfully get rid of the original partner, had to let go of the investor, which hurt really bad. But I can tell you actually, today, as of today, I'm the sole owner of Treatment Box, and have all the equity. But it took a lot. It took a lot of I had basically bootstrapped for my family that money back, and so now I'm looking for somebody to go forward with, because I really do believe that this can move to a much larger scale, and I believe that it can be taken to other chronic illnesses. And I believe it can be something like 1-800-Flowers. Like I feel like it has the potential to be very large.
And international.
And international. And I've already started getting like requests for like international boxes. And so in November, I'll be going to Dublin for the Web Summit. I don't know, is anybody else in here going to that? No. So it's cool because we got chosen as part of their Alpha program, which is where they pick like, I don't even know how many, probably a jillion, but they pick a bunch of young startups. And like past people of the program have been people like Uber and like Dropbox and like just really cool people. So I'm super excited to do that and try to like really make some connections to try to like move this forward, not just with investor, but with technology too, because I'm not a tech person, but I really need a tech person there to like move the site forward, because what I hope to do is be able to customize it. So like you go on and you can tell exactly where your friend is in the treatment. We know exactly what kind of cancer they have, and we can really customize the boxes like for the person. So.
Well, you might revisit the office hours page, because we're adding more technology folks, and you can get 20 minutes with somebody to talk about your technology strategy, because
that's
at the
awesome.
top of that page now is this statement that 15 minutes with the right person can save you a lot of time and anguish. So hopefully we can help you find the right person to have that conversation.
Okay. I love that.
Well, thanks a lot for coming.
I appreciate it. I love talking to you guys, so thank you.
Feel free to hang out to more coffee, talk to Kim, Henry.